inspired. Neil Price joins us right now on the Farm Bureau phone line. Check out favorites.com and go with the home team, Mississippi Farm Bureau. You know Neil. He is the football and basketball radio play-by-play voice at Mississippi State and has turned into a chef during the last couple of months with his grill and pizzas. Hello, Neil.
Hey, Richard. How are you?
Good, man. Really appreciate you visiting with us for a bit this afternoon. So let's start there with your grilling skills. I've been following the pizzas that look like they've gotten progressively better over the last couple of months.
Well, they're round now, and that's a step in the right direction. They were kind of oblong and everything else early, but yeah, I'd made the comment that I think the best thing any of us could do in the midst of all of this is try to find ways to come out of it better than we went into it. And I had this grill since about last Labor Day, I guess, and just hadn't had much time to use it because, you know how it is when you're working in this business, you're on the road a lot and you're traveling, and when you're not traveling, you're preparing, and you just don't have a lot of time to do things like that. And I said, I've got time now. I'm going to try to figure some of these things out. And from other people who'd had a grill, similar, they all raved about how good the pizza was on it. And I tell you, after we've done this now for a month and a half, I don't know that we'd line up eagerly to go and buy a store-bought pizza anymore or buy one out in town just because it just tastes so much different. But, yeah, I've enjoyed doing that. And I don't know that I'm better at it, but, regardless of how it looks, it eats pretty good, and I guess that's the main thing.
So are you making homemade crust?
No, I'm not that good.
Okay. I was going to say, I'm really going to be impressed if that's the case.
Yeah, they make them in the store now where you can get them, and they're the right size, and you just roll them out. I mean, they're already in a circle for you, and you just put them on the peel, and then load them up however you want, and take them and throw them on the stone. So, yeah, that part makes it a lot easier. But no, I'm not near good enough to try and put together homemade dough.
The thing, Neil, that's been most interesting to me, and it's been cool. It's probably been the good part of what we've gone through for the last couple of months. I've been home on weekends. I've got 3 little ones at home, and so it's like, I get to be a dad and I get to be a husband on the weekends. This is what people do when they finish work at 5 o'clock or 6 o'clock on Friday. They don't really think about it again until sometime on Monday. That's been kind of cool, but I certainly don't want it to last forever. Have you been able to kind of adjust to, this is what people that don't work 30 or 40 weekends out of the year do?
I joke that I think it's a glimpse into retirement one day if I live long enough to see that. And I'm okay with it. I am. I think that from a priority standpoint, it's kind of rewired how I think about things. And I do believe I love what I do now. Make no mistake about that, but I think there was a time when I thought, boy, when all this comes to an end one day, either when I've worked long enough to retire or I've worked long enough for somebody to get tired of listening to me, then I don't know what I'm going to do. And now I think that if that day came, I'd hate for it to get here sooner than it needs to, but I'd be at peace with it and I'd be okay. And I just learned there's so many other things in the world and so many other things that you can do, and just simple things, little things, going and grilling out, reading a good book, listening to some of these old games. I've really enjoyed that. There are things you can do to keep yourself occupied. I walk around the neighborhood and do more stuff like that, physical activity. I've done more of that in the last 2 months than I've probably done in a 60-day stretch in my life, and it's been a good thing. It's been positive. So, I think that, I'll look forward to getting back in the football stadium when that day comes and being around fans again and doing games. But it's been nice to kind of catch a breath, too.
You did something yesterday, and I texted you about this, and kind of what got me thinking, hey, would visit with Neil. You kind of organized, or maybe with a little bit of help, organized all 14 football play-by-play announcers on the radio side of things from the SEC in a Zoom call. And I saw your original tweet, and I was like, oh, that's interesting. And then I thought, you know what? I'm going to listen to that. I was grabbing lunch, and I just got sucked in. And it's not like there was necessarily this massive amount of groundbreaking news, but it was light, and it was fun, and it was interesting, and everybody was loose. And you guys went for almost 2 hours just kind of shooting the bull yesterday. Take me through it.
Well, we could have gone a lot longer, and what I learned as a guy who's not been a moderator of very many things is that when you have a group of 14 people, any preconceived notion you have that you're going to be able to go right down a list of topics gets thrown out the window quickly. And that's no reflection on the guys who are on the call. It's just that there's a lot of people, and everybody has an interesting take on something, and it just leads you down another path. Where the idea came from, I can't take credit for the idea. Learfield IMG's been doing a series of podcasts that they call Vocal Distancing. And I was on one a few weeks ago with Don Fisher, who's the longtime voice of the Indiana Hoosiers, with Andy Demetra, who's one of my contemporaries, roughly my age, at Georgia Tech, and then Adam Witten, who was the moderator, who works in Winston-Salem for Learfield IMG, but also does football at Appalachian State. And, it was just an hour of us sitting there shooting the breeze. And in the back of my mind, I thought, what if we got all the SEC guys together? And I kind of tossed that idea out to Tom Bowman, and he goes, yeah, I think it's a good idea. And originally it was going to be the 11 guys that were under the Learfield IMG umbrella. But I knew Tom Leach very well at Kentucky because I worked with him for 12 years. I've known Andy Burcham for the better part of 15 years at Auburn. And I know Chris Blair because he came into the league shortly before I did, and we talked a lot about, before I came here, the possibility of maybe going to Georgia Southern to replace him. And the more that I thought about those three guys, I said, it'd be really cool if we could get all 14 together. And I didn't know if it ever happened before, and still don't know if it has prior to yesterday, but I know it's rare. And Tom Stipe over at Alabama, who's been working with their crew for a long time, Tom had sent a picture to me, and I think all the other broadcasters not too long ago, of the 1984 meeting of the SEC broadcasters in Nashville that John Ward organized. And I just thought, how cool would it be to get everybody, quote, in the same room? And we were able to do it. And it was really, really cool to me for no other reason than to say that we were all together and we got to enjoy telling stories for, hour and 45 minutes. And I'd love to do it again in smaller groups where we could get into more discussion about things. But it was one of the coolest things I've been a part of in a long time, just because we all had time to do it and everybody was willing to do it and seemed excited about doing it.
Neil Price, who is the voice of the Mississippi State Bulldogs on your radio, SportsTalk Mississippi, streaming at supertalk.fm. We got a couple of minutes till the break, and then we'll talk until the bottom of the hour. Neil's agreed to spend a couple of segments with us. You mentioned Andy Demetra when you were talking a second ago, and that kind of took me down like memory lane. Neil, for people that want to get into the broadcasting business, and I think there are a lot of people that are out there, like, that are college age or maybe even high school, or maybe that's a dream they've held on to. Women's basketball broadcasting, and those gigs are harder to get than they used to be, especially in the SEC, is a road that a lot of people have gone down and have ultimately ended up in bigger jobs. My path has been different because I'm not doing radio with football and men's basketball, but I've done more TV stuff. You're now a lead broadcaster. Andy Demetra is at South Carolina. David Kellum did women's basketball at Ole Miss years and years and years ago. And I'm sure there are a number of others who kind of got their start there and have been able to progress through their careers.
Yeah, Bob Kessling did Lady Ball basketball for a long time prior to taking over for John Ward.
That's right.
Andy Burcham, at one time, Andy was the longest tenured of the women's basketball announcers in the SEC. I think prior to having to step in and fill Rod's shoes, he was the longest tenured in that group. So Yeah, there have been a bunch of us, and I don't know that I have a clear answer. I can tell you from my personal experience, it helped.
Neil, let me interrupt you just for a second. We're up against a break. I don't want to cut you off mid-sentence. I apologize for that. We'll take a quick timeout. Sports Talk Mississippi streaming on supertalk.fm. We're visiting with Neil Price on the Farm Bureau phone line. Check out favrates.com and go with the home team. We'll be right back. More with Neil. Continuing our conversation with Neil Price, the voice of the Mississippi State Bulldogs on the Farm Bureau phone line. Neil, thanks for being patient, hanging with us through the break. Before we had to break away, you're kind of talking about the path of going from women's basketball announcer to, you're in the lead chair at a school in the SEC, and there are a lot of people that would like to figure out how to, navigate that road themselves.
Started to tell you is, it worked for me. It's worked for others. I don't know that means it's cut and dry that if you go do this, it's going to happen. Everybody's path, I think, is different. But I'll tell you the advantages for me outside of the repetition and doing the games in a league like the SEC. It's the opportunity to meet people. I was at Kentucky, and I also did baseball, by the way, and there was a guy coaching baseball named John Cohen when I started doing the games in 2005. I think it's more than a coincidence, that I work for a guy named John Cohen now, who's the athletic director at Mississippi State. So did that help? Absolutely. You go to the SEC tournament, you meet other people. The baseball thing to me with regard to, maybe earning some respect and building relationships with the other guys that are the lead announcers was real valuable because there are still a lot of guys who do all three sports. And that was, that was great. And then the other thing is, I think as you network, you get people that become advocates for you, and have your back on a lot of things. And for me, that guy's Bob Kessling. I met Bob 20 years ago, and I said this in our podcast earlier in the week. If someone would have told me 20 years after meeting Bob Kessling at a broadcasting camp in Knoxville, Tennessee, as a sophomore in junior college, that we would still, number one, speak on a regular basis, be friends, and that I would be, in a similar role to the one that he's in, I don't think I would have believed it. But that's how it happened. So the thing I would tell anybody who wants to be a broadcaster, it's all about reps, and it's about making connections and networking with people. And the thing I think about in this state in particular, there are a ton of high schools, and you've got the junior college system. I did junior college basketball for 2 years. It was one of the greatest experiences of my life. I did 2 basketball games, on 2 nights a week for 2 years. And the amount of improvement and the edge I got on other people for jobs early, right out of college, was in large measure because I was able to do that for 2 years, and nobody else did. I think those two things in this state can be huge advantages for anybody who wants to do this.
Yeah. So many opportunities on Friday nights for high school football as well across the state. I mean, that's kind of how it started for me. I guess my senior year of high school, after my senior year, I graduated from Oxford High School, and then the following year started doing radio broadcasts locally for Oxford and Lafayette High Schools. So, and
David
the funny thing is,
baseball when he was in high school, right? I think David did.
He absolutely did.
Baseball when he was a senior in high school. Yeah.
Yeah,
and the thing, I'll say this too, not to interrupt you, I'll say this too, though, and we live in a different time now, but I heard Mike Leach talk about this earlier today with regard to football coaches, and I think it also applies to people who are trying to get a break in broadcasting. You're going to have to do some things early in your career for very little or no pay. I got paid, I remember doing high school games as a 16-year-old while I was still in school, traveling with a team, and my pay was a pregame meal at Luby's Cafeteria in the College Square Mall in Morristown before the game. I got a certificate. That's how I got paid the first 2 years that I was doing games. That's what it is. And I believe if you'll take it seriously and that you'll go through that experience and you'll just be happy to do it, that you'll find out as you get better, people will pay you to do it, and they'll gladly pay you to do it. That's the part that's a tough pill to swallow, I think, for some people. But, I look back on it now and I think, man, if I wouldn't have done that and I would have just said, no, I'm going to hold out for somebody to pay me minimum wage, I might have still been years down the road from being ultimately where I wanted to be.
Neil, I think I did better than you, but not by a lot. I want to say that $65 a game was the rate, but there was a really glamorous piece to it as well. So this would be on a Friday night where if it was a road game, if it wasn't at Oxford or Lafayette High School, we might be going to Tishomingo County or to Hernando or somewhere like that. And so we would meet at the radio station at 3 o'clock, and you know how hot it is early in the season during high school football, and we would climb into a white, probably 1988 model Chevrolet Econoline van that was one of those panel vans that had no air condition. And at the time, that very first year, it was Gary Darby and me that were working together, and we would head out on the road and bump and bounce our way down the road and haul in radio equipment, and it absolutely is one of the greatest experiences of my life and wouldn't trade it for anything.
Listen, it's great being in the SEC. And it's been a dream for years for me to do that. But there are moments when I sit, just because of the enormity of what this monster is. I remember early on sitting at Davis Wade Stadium, getting ready to do one of those games in 2017, that first year, and I thought, man, I'm 3 years removed from sitting at George Rogers Clark High School in Winchester, Kentucky, excited to be there for Clark County and Montgomery County in the Rec Bowl, and just thought how much fun I used to have riding around with Hayes McMakin, who owned the station, Graham Johns, who did the games with me, and Lynn Midden, and how much we just cut up and had a good time because there was no pressure. There was no pressure. You just went and did the game, and you did the best that you could, and people appreciated the fact that you did it. And, there are times that I miss that. This pays much better, certainly. And it's fun
True
to
statement.
It's fun to be in these big stadiums and see these iconic places. But there are things that are just different. So what I tell you is if you're working your way up, if you're in one of those spots now doing a high school game, doing the junior college games, enjoy the ride. Enjoy the opportunity to build relationships with people. That will change as you come up the ladder. Because there's such a demand placed on the time of the people that you work with, the coaches you work with. You can't just walk into an office. Like when I was in junior college games, I could walk into a coach's office any day, sit down and say, hey, how are you doing? And just have a normal conversation. That's not the real world at this level. So enjoy the ride. It's a lot of fun if you'll let it be and just be where your feet are for a moment and really enjoy that. Because once you leave it, you never really go back to that, I don't think.
Neil Price on your radio. He's the voice of the Mississippi State Bulldogs football and basketball. I'm not going to ask you to do this with your money. I am going to figuratively hand you a crisp $100 bill right now, and you have to make a wager, either yes or no. Mississippi State is playing football in Davis Wade Stadium on September 5th. It's not coming out of your pocket. You got to bet $100 one way or the other. Which way are you going?
My gut right now is no.
Okay.
Now, I'll qualify that by saying I do think they'll play this fall.
Okay.
But I base that simply upon we're midway through the month of May, and there's not a team in the league, or for that fact in the country, that has had any kind of spring or is anywhere close to knowing if they're going to have any kind of organized workout. And I know that June 1st date has been tossed around a lot, but it seems awful late in the game if they're going to start on June 1 for no word. So now I think the best you're hoping for is June 15, if it's then. And there's just still so many other things that have to be unpacked and all that to kind of see where you are. And then it sounds like everybody is pretty much set on it's got to be 6 weeks when they get everybody back to start getting them ready. So I just think the timeline makes it tough for Labor Day weekend. But I am very optimistic that there will be football this fall on campuses. And I know that here it would be a very welcome thing in a town the size of Starkville. I'm sure it's not any different in Oxford. I'm sure it's not any different in Hattiesburg. People want to have football. They want their businesses to be open again. They want to enjoy something that they can deem as some sense of normal. We're all human in that way. I'm optimistic it's going to happen this fall, but I'm not yet sold on Labor Day weekend.
Well, as long as it happens, I think we can all get on board. If it doesn't, then that's not good for anybody. Neil, really appreciate your time this afternoon. Had fun kind of going down memory lane on some things and getting some of your perspective, and certainly look forward to seeing you at a stadium or arena or ballpark soon. Talk to you later, bud.
Glad I could fill the air for a half hour. Good talking to you.
No, it was more than just filling the air. Neil Price on the Farm Bureau phone line. Check out favorites.com and go with the home team. This is Sports.